listen, expect the Spanish Inquisition. It's head first only television.
Is it safe? Good evening, Belinda, and good evening, Array of Emotions, and good evening, Ryako Music. Can you see me? Have I got sound? So, about 20 minutes ago, OBS, which I had running, all nice and ready for... It works. Ryako Music says it is safe. Thank you for the feedback. That is good to know. About 20 minutes ago, I'd got everything set up. I'd got all prepared and everything. And then OBS said, oh, new update, updating. So I'm now running OBS version 26. I've had to completely reset all my cameras. I had to uninstall them and install them again. So let's turn up the brightness a bit and the saturation and the contrast, because that's the kind of guy I am. It really isn't dark in here, so I'm not quite sure what's going on. Clearly, everything is going pear-shaped, because it's been that kind of day. Array of Emotion says, have you been tucking into the wine? No, to be honest. It was very tempting. It's been... I'm having a rough old week. Let's be honest about this. I've not been sleeping well. I'm in quite a lot of pain at the moment. The only way I'm getting to sleep at the moment is to actually make a hot water bottle and hold it on my kidneys, which sort of numbs the pain a bit. Ryako Music says, you're not drunk, you should be, in all capitals. Yeah, I think I will be tomorrow, because A, it's Friday, B, 50/90 will be over, and C, why not? I'm feeling a bit rough today. I've been in here most of the day just prattling about and recorded a song. More on that in a bit. But I'm just clumsy and tired and uncoordinated, and I managed to tip half a pint of orange juice all over the studio floor this afternoon. It's just, yeah. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Housekeeping. Hello and welcome to my new follower on Twitch, or even Twitch, Phil McMill, renowned former of old. So, Phil, thank you for following. It's much appreciated. If you're watching this on Twitch and you haven't followed me already, then please do. I'm not quite at Mel's level yet in terms of getting to affiliate, but I'm gradually sort of chugging away. This is Twitch Livestream 21. This is the 21st week that I've been doing this, and I have no idea where the time has gone. Belinda says, sorry, life is sucky on Twitch. Yeah, it really is at the moment, I'm afraid, and it's all getting me a bit down. So I think over the next few days I'm probably just gonna collapse in a heap, because I've been working on 50/90 all summer, and after being behind schedule in August, I kind of got a bit obsessed with not just doing 50 songs in 90 days, but doing considerably more than 50 songs in 90 days, which is why I was still doing a song last night at 1:45 in the morning. And I have decided to call it time on 50/90 with, and I will switch to my 50/90 profile so you can marvel at my obsessive levels of achievement. Because if I go to my profile, there you go, 65 songs I've got finished at this point. And that's just not just lyrics, that's actually uploading full production numbers, and you know what I'm like for production. So that's a good showing. And in case you're wondering why that says 68 when it says 65 at the top, there is a bug on the website. If you stitch an exquisite corpse and upload it to the site, it counts it as a separate song for every collaborator that you collaborated with, which is kind of confusing. So that bit there for Experimental Corpse Delta, there's only one of it. There's not four of it. Ryako Music says, yeah, mate, you killed yourself. Don't I feel it? I really do. I'm going to step away from the keyboard over the next week. I will still do the 5090 show on Sunday because 5090 finishes tomorrow. In fact, let's give you a countdown. You have, at present, 1 day and 5 hours, which that seems weird to me. But, oh no, that's right. So it's kind of, yeah, okay. So the idea is that it's not 5090 anymore when it's no longer October the 1st anywhere in the world. Although I noticed before I went live and looked at my watch that my watch is currently telling me it's September the 31st because manual watch. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll probably have edited all this rambling and waffling out of the video, which is why the YouTube versions of these shows usually come in at between 15 and 20 minutes shorter than the ones that actually go out live. And there is a reason for that, even when I'm not tired and even when I've been at the wine. But that's going to be another time. So let me get me notes because there's loads of stuff going on. Yeah, OBS version 26 kind of looks the same. All I can see is there is now a little button below the start, stop streaming, start, stop recording button that says start virtual camera. What does that mean? That means that you can now use OBS as your feed, as your webcam in Zoom or Skype or GoToMeeting or anything else, which is amazing. So mere mortals are going to gasp at the fact that I'm doing multi-camera shots in my video conferences that I have all the time as a working person. Not. It's got some nice new features. However, what it appeared to do in the half an hour that I've managed to play with it and get it all back up and running is that it completely breaks all the connections to any video capture device. So I had to pull them all out and delete them and reinstall them from scratch and give them new names and effectively create new scenes for my OBS setup. Wobby, good evening. I'm glad you could join us. I need company this evening. It's been a bit rough. So OBS 26 breaks all your camera settings. It also changes all your network settings as well. I was all finally winding down after getting the cameras sorted out, click start stream, and it said, nope, can't find a network binding. And it was like, what do you mean? So, of course, I had to go into the advanced settings on OBS and fix that by turning it back to default because it just completely changed its mind about how I connect to the internet. Wobby says, I needed to hear what I just missed. Yeah, I'm a bit rough and a bit out of sorts, and I've been knocking things over, and I'm just generally run down and knackered and in pain, and I'm really glad 5090 isn't going on for another month because I think I'd probably kill myself if I tried to do any more than I've done. But I've knocked it on the head this afternoon with 65 songs. So, yeah, yay me. Wobby says, oh, poor you. Thank you. That's very kind. Yeah, like I say, it's been a rough week. I dropped my phone. Cracked me bloody screen as well. And it's a hairline crack. But even so, it was my nice shiny phone, and it's... So there's that. And the kidneys are giving jip, and I still haven't heard anything of when I'm going to get surgery or treatment or anything else. And Ryako Music says, you need a break, sir. Yeah, I was planning on going for a couple of nice long 10-mile walks this weekend, but my phone is still working and it went ping this afternoon, and when I opened it there was a yellow warning of rain for the whole of the weekend here. So there are what is being determined as damaging quantities of rain forecast here for the weekend. Yesterday, while I was watching Mel's stream, I actually had to turn up Mel's sound on the monitors because the rain from outside was hammering against the windows. So Ryako Music says, is this the week from hell? It kind of feels like it, but I'll get over it. I'll survive. Other big software updates this week. Pendulate now at version 1.0.6. Can't really see whether it does anything more, but kind of becoming a bit tempted that the full polysynth version of Pendulate, which is called Granulate, is currently on offer at like 99 quid, but I'm trying not to spend any more money at the moment. Big Superior Drummer update. It's gone from version 3.2.1 to version 3.2.2, and that was nearly 400 megabytes of download that I did this week. I really, really am glad that I'm on fibre here, because if I was still on just normal broadband, I'd probably still be downloading stuff. New version of Neutron 3 dropped this week as well, so that's a new one. And heads up, there is going to be a new music production offer from Isotope, which I'm kind of guessing will include RX9, which dropped, a couple of weeks ago. If you're looking to get into the Isotope, Ozone, Neutron, everything else field of production and mastering, have a look on Isotope's site tomorrow, because there may be something worth your while. Don't know, but I'm guessing. Ryako Music says, you know what's good? Eating food and sitting on the couch. And Raja says, being Godzilla and destroying a cardboard city. You know, I might combine the two and dig out my humongous Criterion collection of Godzilla movies that date from 1954, when the original one started, up to the early 70s. So I watched those films as a kid on Saturday mornings in the cinema in Stafford, and that is my happy place, watching Godzilla trash lots and lots and lots of cardboard cities. I may well take Belinda's advice. Belinda says that is my answer for everything, and to be honest, as a philosophy of life, it's a pretty good one. So lots of software. 5090 finishes, well, as we've just said, in about a day's time. Technically, it should finish at midnight here tonight, but it finishes when it's no longer 5090 anywhere on the planet. So it's as if you were on the Pacific dateline waiting for October the 2nd to turn up. But if you're doing 5090, don't hold off on posting stuff, because I might be wrong, or the site might close at noon tomorrow, which it has done in the past. That's noon British Summertime, noon Universal Coordinated Time, noon Greenwich Mean Time. Who knows? Get your stuff in now. Remember, if you're doing 5090, you can just create a placeholder, and all you need's the name of the song that you're going to finish. Rasha says, I wish I could send you my onesie. I looked for some on Amazon over here, but the ones over here are rubbish. But Ryako Music says, you need a onesie, Chris. I have something better. I now have all the components for my Halloween costume, and that is what I am going to be putting together in the next couple of days. And I kid you not, I'm actually rather chuffed with how good it looks, because I've sort of stuck everything together as a dry run before I actually glue and stitch and iron and weld and whatever else I'm doing with it. It's going to be good. So Ryako Music says you need a onesie. I have something as good, if not better. And I really hope kids do go trick-or-treating this Halloween, because I'm going to have fun if they do. Let's just leave it at that. But I will be premiering it on here. So I will probably be live streaming in my costume at least once this month. What have I been doing? Lots of music, as you've no doubt gathered by now. I've pretty much rendered myself half dead by making lots of music. So this is the one that I was still working on at 1:45 this morning, because after watching Mel's stream about scoring Metropolis, I was inspired. So what I want to talk about, we've been... Squirrel. Actually, kind of, it's not a squirrel. This is not a sidetrack or a diversion. This is framing the music that I'm going to play you in about 10 minutes when this explanation finishes going where it's going. You remember I've been going through and finding and downloading and talking about a whole bunch of free synthesizer VST plugins that you can download off the web. And I raved about Pendulate, which is the chaotic oscillator based on the physics of a linked pendulum with two weights on it, which is easy to model mathematically, but behaves in very, very unpredictable ways and makes gorgeous, really fat, complex sounds that evolve over time. So loved that. Loved Surge, which is a open source software development project that just happens to be a polysynth, and you can download that off GitHub, and we've covered that, and the URLs are in the previous shows. And there have been a number of other, let's just say, synthesizers that I've been less enthusiastic about, and leave it at that. And one of the ones that I played with and then realised it hadn't any presets, and I really couldn't be bothered teaching myself about how to do it, was one that was called, rather uninspiringly, Synth 1. And Synth 1 is a software emulation of a gorgeous synthesizer that if you watch any band, especially jazz/fusion/prog bands, whether they be Snarky Puppy or Lazuli or any of that ilk, there will always be a bright red synthesizer on the keyboard player's keyboard rack, and that is a Clavier Nord, usually a Lead 1. And Synth 1 is a software emulation of the Clavier Nord Lead 1. And from going and getting hugely grumpy about the fact that it didn't come with any presets, I thought, well, I wonder if anybody else has created presets for it that I can download on the web. And oh boy, I hadn't realised just what a popular synth this guy is. I found one guy's collection was 25,000 different presets for this machine. So I've been going around the web and downloading a few. So as you can see, each of these lines of entry in the options table here is a bank of presets. So there's 30 in the first bank, 128 in the second, 45 in the third, 128 in the fourth, and there's also a zip bank, which is a directory on my machine that contains zip files. I don't even have to unzip them. I literally just save zip files of presets to that directory on my machine, and Synth 1 does the rest. And the sounds that I managed to find have been rather splendid. So this is the one that I ended up using as the bones of this track. So it sequences. Isn't that lovely? So once I'd found that, I thought, ooh, maybe I should try some other synth noise patches from this. Found another one which was equally good. And yeah, so I was off and running. So the thing is, not only have I been playing synth a lot, my elbow's better. So I have also been playing with this guy. Because this is my bestest guitar. It's a Parker Mojo Midi Fly. So you see the little LED there? That's because it's plugged into my guitar synth. So if I enable the guitar synth on my mixer, and the thing is, not only, as you can see, it's got two leads, so that 13-pin connector is talking to me GR55 on the floor, but it also talks to my main guitar effects chain. So I've got my normal guitar effects chain playing at the same time. So, Untitled 66, good evening. Are we on topic or down a rabbit hole? Oh, you know me so well. This is me actually demoing how I made some of the noises on the track that I'm about to play you. So, we are actually on topic, believe it or not. So, yeah, I've got a Roland GR55. It's driven by this Parker Fly. And if I just... So I've got literally two stereo feeds into your listening ears, and I can make humongous sounds. And to be honest, I could even... The GR55 also has another output, which is Cosm, which is a sort of studio modelling software. And of course loads of reverb with the little Moore Ocean Machine that you can see flashing at my feet. So I love this thing. I mean, yes, I bought it second hand and I had to wait while they stuck all the frets back on it because the frets were falling off, and it's an epoxy resin that you can only get in the aviation industry to put the frets in because it's a carbon fibre coated neck, and yeah, it's just nuts. But it weighs nothing, and yet it's got a beautiful tone to it. And pretty decent sustain. So I ended up, and I'll switch this off now because otherwise it'll drain the battery. Atitlan says that's a big sound. Oh yes, and I've been doing loads of big sounds this week. Let's just turn those off, turn the synth off, and tidy up my studio because with my lack of coordination, if I don't tidy up the studio, all of this is going to end up with me on the floor. Because that's the kind of week I've been having. I've been reading this week about a physics paper that was published by... Yes, this is still on topic. I've been reading this week about a physics paper that came out on the 21st of September, published by a couple of people from the University of Queensland, which had a very long and convoluted title referring to closed time-like curves, and looked at the transmission of information on non-local basis. And the idea is that you can't transmit information from one point to another faster than the speed of light, right? And you get, they call them light cones, where anybody who is outside a light cone can't get information from that. Well, these folks at the University of Queensland have basically come up with maths that say, actually, it doesn't matter. It doesn't break physics if you do transmit information faster than light. And it doesn't break physics if you time travel. So what they're saying is that you can go back in time, but the universe will accommodate even something like the grandfather paradox of you killing your grandfather so that your father doesn't get born. And they're basically saying, yeah, it doesn't matter. The universe will actually accommodate itself and fix the past so that things pretty much turn out as they already have. And buried in the bottom of National Public Radio interview with a few scientific people who were talking about the ramifications of that, one of the guys dropped a real doozy, and he goes, well, it just means the universe is deterministic, which translated into simpler language basically means that free will is an illusion, and what we do is predetermined, and it's just our brains come up with some sort of retrospective reason for why we did something after the fact. And they've actually monitored people, the electrical currents in people's muscles to move and do things, and those electrical currents in the muscles and the movement actually take place before the person decides to make the movement, and then it's just the person, as Wobby says, comes up with an excuse afterwards as to why they did it that way. So I came up with the title as a result of reading that, and this is what it sounds like. I'm going to turn you down in case this is a bit raucous. So I'm really pleased with that. Before I dive into chat, because chat has been kicking off, I wanted to point something out about what I was doing on this track. Because, as I said in the liner notes on the 5090 site, I came up with the first section, which was this very, very, very basic synth pattern, which is, what, 2 notes, effectively. All right, 3 notes. And then a bit later on, there's an answering section, which is this bit. And that is just one synth line. There's nothing else. The thing is, and it was only by blind luck that I realised I'd done it this way, that what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you something, because if I drag them so that they happen at the same time, something kind of interesting happens. So if I play them both at the same time, I mean, they don't entirely fit, but they fit well enough. So what I ended up doing was that I recorded, go back to it again. So all this stuff at the bottom is the guitar. So there's one guitar patch for one section, another guitar patch for another section, and then a third which sort of pulls the two together. So I've ended up effectively with 5 different patterns or motifs, and then right at the end, as you can see, I've got them all playing simultaneously. And believe me, you might be surprised by that. I don't think you were as surprised as I was. It was like, bloody hell, I didn't realise I could do that. So I was rather chuffed with that piece, even if I was up until 1:45 this morning putting it together. So yeah, I'm being a clever clogs, really, involuntary and completely by accident. But afterwards it was like, oh, of course I meant to do that. Ha ha, you see? See how I set that up and then ruined the punchline by actually lighting it up in neon. But right, let's dive back into the chat. So Noajaya says, my friend has been listening while homeschooling her kids. She wants you to read to her because she says your voice is awesome, soothing. That's really rather nice and very, very flattering. Does this mean it's time for the wedding DJ to make an appearance? Good evening, everybody. As I have said before, it's part of it's me, but the majority of it is this, which is a Shure SM7B microphone and the proximity effect, which enhances mids, low mids, upper lows if you get close to it, so you really hear the bass come through in my voice. It's the mic doing it. It just loves my voice for some reason, and I'm going to take whatever I can get if I can make my voice sound better. But thank you. Just tell me what she wants me to read, and quite happy to do that. My voiceover rates are very reasonable. Ryako Music says, I think Chris should read cookie recipes. Oh, yeah, now there's an idea. I have books full of cookie recipes. Ryako Music says, yay for not breaking physics. Wow, that science paper sounds amazing. I've heard about that. And then we get into actually playing the music. That drum pattern is funky, says Ryako Music. Yeah, that's the Fusion Grooves add-on Midi pack that you can get from TuneTrack. So you don't even have to have Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer. It is literally one of the groove packs you can buy. There are some lovely, lovely, lovely patterns in that particular Midi pack. This one's called Syncopated Backbeat, which has lovely stuff. I do love syncopated drumming. It's just one of my things. Array of Emotions had a very complicated theory about why he cracked an egg into the sink instead of the bowl, which is hilarious. Ryako Music says, that was funny. I howled with laughter when I saw him doing that and looking confused. I said in the chat, it just means that it was meant to be, and even if you went back in time to warn yourself that you were about to do that, it would still happen. That's just the way it is. So Atitlan then actually says, the amount of gap filling and plain lying our brains do is incredible. Subliminal by Leonard Mlodinow has some discussion of great experiments in that area. And I said, I love Leonard's books. He's a brilliant science writer. He writes on all sorts of interesting subjects. Really, really good. So then what have we got? Ryako Music says, do you think that plays a part when having complex dreams? I said, yeah. We got into a whole discussion about dreams. I have another hoodie which I will be wearing rather than the Marshall one next week. And Rev Motion says, synth sounds a bit like something from Porcupine Tree's Fear of a Blank Planet. The song Anaesthetised, to be precise, which is one of my favourite albums. Wobby, of course, picks up the Brian Eno reference, honour thy error as a hidden intention. Got them here. And then Noirjai says, you just made her giggle like a schoolgirl. Array of Emotions says even more complimentary things about my voice, but yeah, let's move on. Otherwise, my ego will just not fit in the room anymore. So yeah, I kind of like that, and that was really complicated and everything else, but maybe I had a premonition that this week was just going to be a hellish week, because one of the other tracks that I've done since we last spoke was one, and this is something, I'm taking a leaf out of your book, Wobby, because I've realised just how engaging picking a common turn of phrase can be in getting the creative juices flowing. And the one that I picked that I ended up recording, and I really liked what I'd done, even if I went back and changed some of the lyrics afterwards, because frankly they were a bit supercilious, and I kind of don't want to be that kind of guy. So this track, and Ryako Music says, Wobby the Muse. Yeah, absolutely, Wobby the Muse. And I'm glad I've made your day, Wobby. So this track is... I used yet another synthesizer on this one. This one has a most bizarre synth called Sinar, which it's kind of interesting, but in a weird sort of way, but it's really good at bass lines. And this is yet another track that came up entirely out of the bass line. So I'll shut up and just play it here.
He had a plan so perfect, anyone who saw it would burst into song. Run by a madman was just one defect. Doesn't take a scientist to notice that it's all gone horribly wrong. Egged on by friends, he bragged about it, convinced himself that at the top is where he belonged. When hubris strikes, you don't shout about it. Don't claim you're a genius when everything has all gone horribly wrong. Raise a glass and celebrate the power of delusion. This is turning into quite the drinking song. When those in charge, governed by illusion, take a shot for every time that everything has all gone horribly wrong. Now there's no longer any question. Poor chap just hasn't got a clue. Funny how he never seems to pay his taxes. Claims he's wealthy, yet he barely scrapes along. But now the mob is busy sharpening their axes. Obvious to all except the misinformed, it's all gone horribly wrong.
So one of those songs that pretty much came together almost without effort. Let me just realised I've still got my screensaver running, which is probably why the CPU meter in the top right-hand corner there is currently at 55%, which it should not be. Watch what happens when I get rid of Boink Manager. Boom. Suddenly the CPUs are doing about half the amount of work they were doing beforehand, which is how it should be. I liked that one. So Raja says, theme song. It's been that kind of year, hasn't it? It really has. Bobby says, I want to decide on something for one last song this year. We were going to do a collab with my wedding DJ voice. But there's still time. There's still time. There's the rest of this evening. There's tomorrow morning. I'm still up for it. Atitland66 says, it's all gone horribly wrong. Really works well as a hook. It kind of... I love it when a song... I love it when a song comes together. Somebody's used that, I'm sure. But, yeah... I need to talk to you if you're still up for it now. Yeah, totally go for it. When I finish streaming, and I won't be streaming for 3 hours this week like I was last week, because I'll probably keel over if I did. But yeah, let's chat after the stream. And I'm still up for it. Always up for a collab with Wobby. So that was It's All Gone Horribly Wrong. I wrote 3 songs yesterday. I wrote 2 songs the day before. I'll play you this one as well, because I set myself a challenge, and this particular challenge I failed, because what I wanted to do there, you guys, certainly the English contingent here will be familiar with a television program by the name of Minder, which starred George Cole and Dennis Waterman for the first 7 seasons. And then it was basically Dennis Waterman played the minder of a East End character called Arthur Daly, who was supposed to be a bit of a wide boy, a bit of a smooth talker, bit too fast for his own good. The only trouble was he was also blindingly incompetent and not particularly well educated, and as a result, I mean, the writing on it was perfect. As soon as George Cole was told the guy dresses like a rather eccentric member of the Citizens Advice Bureau, he said, I've got to play this character. And I'd set myself the task of creating an entire song around one of Arthur Daly's most famous malapropisms, because at one point he turns to Dennis Waterman's character and says, mark my words, Terry, do this and the world's your lobster. And I can't find it anywhere online. I did find one sample, so Arthur does make a cameo appearance in this, but the whole thing actually started, and it's weird. I was messing around with, you remember last week I was telling you about the Pripyat Pianos Contact plugin that I bought, that it turns out Contact Player isn't enough. You have to have the full version of Contact Player to play it. And on Tuesday, I was sitting disconsolately at the console thinking, well, if I can't use the Pripyat pianos, what other weird stuff have I got in Contact that I can play with the player? And I found this, which is a little monophonic. Actually, is it monophonic or is it polyphonic? And it's a Persian ney, which I think is a kind of recorder. And it is monophonic. And it just sounds like something from Noggin the Nog and the Small Films. I just instantly fell in love with the tone. So that was this is one of the things that drives me collecting synths and presets and sounds and samples and loops and everything else, is because all it takes is me to hear something like that suddenly I'll go, oh, I've got to write a song with that. And from that, I ended up pretty much, well, we'll go into the mixing process afterwards, but here we go.
Such a cliche.
some business sense, Wally. Get investors. Use other people's money. That is what made this country great.
Every dodgy geezer has a heart of gold, they say. But if they did, the underworld would quickly fade away. You gotta watch your cash, he'll have it in a flash. Always pays his debts, believes that's what you do. Thinks that he is loved, but he's a villain through and through. Every dodgy geezer has a heart of gold, they say. But if they did, the underworld would quickly fade away. You gotta watch your cash, he'll have it in a flash.
So I kind of like that. I'm glad to see that you said that as well. Wobby says, another cracker, Chris. Atitlan says, the guitar is a bit Dire Straits, and as I commented on the chat, there is a reason for that, and I'll show you what it is. It looks like a Strat, but it isn't. It's Leo Fender sold Fender and decided he was going to retire. And that lasted not very long at all. And he decided that no, he actually needed to run a guitar company. So he formed G&L with his friend. Now, I've forgotten the guy's second name, but his first name was George. So George and Leo is G&L. And this is effectively a Strat Mark II. So it has a redesigned tremolo system. It has completely different wiring. It's got coil taps and all sorts of bizarre and very, very nifty little additions that the Strat doesn't have. And this was going second hand in my local record shop. And like an idiot, I said, oh, can I try that one out? I tend to play it with my fingers rather than a pick because you can get that slap on the strings. If I can move somewhere where you can actually see what I'm doing. And put a bit of distortion on it. So I've got a setting on the Zoom G3 that's just called JB. So I love the thing, and as I say, I've been using this. I've actually been using this Strat a lot this summer, because why wouldn't you? Although, to be honest, apart from the 6 weeks where I'd knackered my elbow, I was using all my guitars a lot, which is probably why I'd knackered my elbow in the first place. Ashland says, repetition of the fluty motif. No, nay, and thrice. That has to be the worst pun I have had in this chat since I started 21 weeks ago. Ryaka Music says that's totes dire straits. Ray Information says instant sultans of swing. Ashitland says Tony's ocean colour scene as well. I aim to please, he adds. It's funny, that last track came together perfectly. This one was a bear. I spent more time mixing it than I did actually recording all the different parts. And I'm still not happy with it. It's still annoying me. And the main thing that's annoying me is the drums. And I've done something to them that it really, really doesn't like. And I think it's probably the reverb. And at this point, Mel, you remember yesterday I was saying that we were going to talk about reverb. And basically what I think I've done is I have ignored my own advice. So proto-verb, which is what I am sending the drums through, is a kind of weird, very, very quirky and somewhat eccentric reverb unit. And literally you can click on that R&D button there and it will just make stuff up and do it, which is why they say, you know, when you find the best or worst sounding reverb, let us know, send code. But listening to the drums are absolutely all over the place on this. And I tried changing kits. I tried fiddling with the mixer inside Superior Drummer, so I can actually change the mic levels. So yes, there are this many microphones which have been used for recording Superior Drummer. But after talking about reverb yesterday on Mel's track, I think I actually know what the problem is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see if following my advice tidies up the mix. And the advice that I haven't given or that I've given to other people and then not followed myself is a very simple one, and that is you EQ your reverbs before you send a signal into the reverb. EQ it. So I'm just going to drop a neutron equalizer prior to the reverbs. I'm going to solo the reverb thing. Now, that signal there is just noise from the desk. I think if I kill the microphone, you'll see it disappear. Or maybe not. No, it's in that case, it's probably going to be distortion somewhere in one of the effects units, actually, in the signal chain. But that kind of makes the point that I want to make, and that is, if you have a look here, all that horrible noisy mud is below 300 hertz. So what I can do is I'm just going to drop a high pass on the signal. This is going into the reverb, remember? So give it a bit of a nudge in the mids because that's where I want the reverb to lift. And again, I don't really want the high end to particularly be in the reverb chain. So I'm gonna, let's change that for a low, a high shelf. That's what I want. There we go. That's better. So I've radically cut the signal going into the reverb, and let's see what it sounds like now. First of all, I'll have the reverb without the EQ, and then I'll play it with the EQ. And it's pretty quiet, yeah. Now let's drop the EQ on it. All that mud's gone away. In fact, I can probably pull the high pass a bit further back. But no more than that. So now,
Every dodgy geezer has a heart of gold, they say. But if they did, the underworld would quickly fade.
get rid of the EQ.
You've got to watch your cash.
Suddenly it all gets really floppy and muddy.
He's not the boss. He's not even third. He didn't.
Well, I don't know if could you guys hear the difference in that? Because I certainly heard the difference here. And just EQing the bottom end out of the reverb, the whole mix tightens up. Rather than faffing about trying different drum kits for about literally an hour and a half yesterday and tweaking things and everything else, all I should have done was just drop a high pass and a low pass filter onto the reverb, because that's what was killing the mix. It works, this stuff. One of the other things that you can do as well, although Protoverb really does not give me the opportunity to do so because it doesn't have the controls, you can and you should also tune your reverb. So particularly things like the pre-delay, when pre-delay being when the first reflections come back or start hitting the microphone from the closest walls. Make your pre-delay work in time with the beat. And that was something I learnt on the Bobby Ozinski course last month. And again, it's something, it's like, it's not going to make that much difference. And then you try it and it's like, oh, okay, that's a lesson worth knowing. So really, I think I will probably remix this and re-render it out with that EQ dropped onto the reverb send. So it's just a send. So it's getting, what's it getting? It's getting the drums. It's getting the Hammond, the cheesy Arthur band, the cheesy house band sound, which is lovely. I sucker for a decent Hammond. And it's also a little bit in the guitar. In fact, it's a shed load on the guitar. It's up to full, and that's about it. So it's just guitar, Hammond, and drums, which is kind of what you'd expect the sort of band to be playing in a pub that Arthur Daly would frequent, which is kind of why I went for that instrumentation. But yeah, lesson learned there, I think. And yeah, people are saying, oh yeah, that worked. So yeah, did I save that? No, I didn't save that. See, I got sidetracked. Although it wasn't kind of a real sidetrack, because it's actually something relevant. Good God, how did that happen? So yeah, reverb. Tuning reverb. Have I got one that I can show you? That was Squirrel. There was one thing that I'm going to now do a callback, not from last week or even the week before, but from weeks ago, where I was talking about, you remember when I was putting the Cats Are Crazy thing together on the Korg, and I said I loved programming the Korg, and it's not, I try, although with synths on Ableton, I tend to just go presets. With physical synths, I try and teach myself to make sounds that I can hear in my head. And I thought, as a bit of fun this week, that I would set myself the challenge of coming up with a particular synth sound that you guys might recognize. And if I can remember the chords, I'll play it for you now. See if it rings a bell. And I think, and this is me fiddling. There's no processing going on on the mixer for this at all. This is literally going to be the dry signal from the Korg M3. So the Korg M3's doing all the work on this, and I'll just play you what I came up with, if I can remember the chords. Yeah, there's all sorts of, I think there's about 5 layers of processing going on that sound, just in the M3's effects chain. Atitlan says, recognise the sound, just can't place it. Just think Ryan Gosling and Orange. It's the, I've forgotten the guy's name, who did the score for Blade Runner 2049. But anyway, so after completely squirreling myself with that, where are we? Synths, reverbs. I was going to try and find a track and put some reverb on it and try and explain what I mean about tuning your reverb to the song. So what have we got here? This is the track I finished this afternoon. So it's cut down. I mean, look at that. There's just 10 tracks on it, and 2 of those are submix groups. So there's very little on it. There's 3 tracks of guitar, bass, and 3 sets of vocals. But what I want to do, that's the bass, so that must be the guitar. There it is. And there is a concert hall on this. So if I solo the guitar, what I want to do, we'll just loop a section of it. I'll try and do. I'm doing this on the fly. This is completely winging it, so I don't know if it's going to work. But so I've got a massive concert hall reverb at 43% on the guitar on this. So if we loop a bit, and you can see on this in Ableton's own EQ within the reverb that I've already savagely cut the EQ going into the reverb. So there's very little going into it below about 2K. If I change it, you'll hear the difference in the tone. So if I leave it, there's also a very, very nasty whine, which is actually the switched mode power supply causing a bit of sonic disruption in some of the amp models that you get in the Zoom, which is irritating, and it's just something that I tend to have to remove afterwards in post. But anyway, what I was going to do is actually change I'm going to whack up the dry wet, and then I'm going to change the pre-delay. But I'm going to do it with the click track on. Can you hear how that's in time? If I knock it out of time. And then put it back in time. So it's kind of really subtle, but it has quite a difference, even though you can't really hear it in the full mix. So this is the last track that I'm going to play you tonight, and it's the last track that I've done for 5090 this year, and it's called That's Enough. So, another very, very fast, short one. So the number of tracks that I've done this last couple of weeks that have been less than 3 minutes long has staggered me, because I don't do less than 3 minutes. There are times when I don't do less than 5 minutes, but nevertheless, that was 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes 30. So just checking up on the chat. Noajai says, you sound like you should, playing the piano, you sound like you should be in a bar in New Orleans. I'd wear a big hat for that and a jazzy dress. Excellent. Ryako Music says, hells yeah, bring the fashion, Belinda. I'd be so up for that. I miss Louisiana. I miss New Orleans. I miss hot sauce. I miss Cajun cooking. Yes, that's enough. And just that little tweak on the guitar lead kind of makes it stand out. But there was a bigger reason that I wanted to play you that track, and it goes back to our talk about poetic forms. You remember we were talking about all the different types of poems a few months ago, back in a different time. Things like, well, this is the stream, remember, that spawned the Nonnet challenge. And I see somebody else has posted a Nonnet today. There were 2 posted at the weekend, so I've got some more commenting to do. The Nonnet was, you write 9 syllables in the first line, 8 in the second. So you get the idea. 9 lines, start with 9 syllables, end up with 1. So today I was thinking, I wonder if there are any other sort of bizarre or arcane poetic forms that I could follow. At which point my muse said, oh, you could write another villanelle. At which point I turned around and shot my muse, because there is no way I was going to write a villanelle. In the current condition I'm in, you need to be at the top of your game to write villanelles. And I'm not even going to explain what the poetic structure of a villanelle is. Just watch Interstellar, because Michael Caine spouts Dylan Thomas's Rage Against the Dying of the Light, blah, 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 blah. Rage Against the Dying of the Light is a villanelle. Anyway, I came up, or discovered, 2 really interesting rhyming schemes and poetic forms today, which I thought I'd share with you. And literally, it was a coin toss-up. Okay, which one am I going to try? So the one that lost the coin toss is a Philippines poetic form called the Tanaga. And that requires you to write 4 lines of 7 syllables a line with an AAAA rhyming scheme. In other words, each line of the song should end with the same rhyme. Noajai says, muse down, get a muse medic. Yeah, it deserved what it got. It really has. It's been pushing me this last couple of months, from being behind in August to being 30% overachieved in 5090 with 65 tracks. So, yeah, it deserved what it got. So anyway, the Tanaga, 4 lines, 7 syllables, AA rhyming scheme, lost out. What did it lost out to? What did it lose out to? It lost out to a modern poetic form that was actually introduced by, and promoted heavily, I have to say, by the journalist Philip Larrea. And he came up with a poetic form which he calls the Tricube. And a tricube is, as I will show you on my notes, because I've got it here, providing this webcam works. There you go. 3 stanzas of 3 lines of 3 syllables. That's a tricube. It's all the 3s. And of course, being all the 3s, I've got 3 guitar tracks and 3 vocal tracks. You see what I did there? I get very, very deep and perhaps obsessively nerdy on the degree that I follow this sort of stuff. And Riaka Music says, your muse is bossy AF. And Atitlan says, but it's not in 3/4. Yeah, it's a pity there's no time signature called 3/3. Otherwise, I'd have picked that. I could have picked, and I have drum patterns for it, I could have picked 9/8, couldn't I? Do you want to hear a drum pattern in 9/8? Let me just save this. And let's very quickly create a new live set. Here we are on the fly here. So in Ableton, watching magic as it happens. Go into me. I have got rather a lot of plugins these days, haven't I? They're all free. Well, no, they're not all free. I did actually spend money on some of them. Because we're doing something that's kind of proggy, we'll go to the Progressive Foundry. We will load. Who shall we have? We'll have Solid Tone, I think. No, let's have Slow Massive. Why not? So we got a nice thumping big bass drum. Now we just need some nice odd time signature drum. So TuneTrack have a lot of extra packs that you basically buy just the MIDI files, and there's a couple of them. They're called the Monster MIDI pack, which are recorded by Peter Friedlander. Monster MIDI pack 1 is fairly straightforward, but Monster MIDI pack 2 is for the weirdos like me, because as you can see, or at least I hope you can see, depending on your screen resolution, we have a selection of time signatures: straight 5/4, swing 5/4, straight 6/8, swing 6/8, straight 7/8, swing 7/8, straight 9/8, and straight 11/8. Now 9/8 is kind of just 3 sets of triplets, so it's a bit waltzy, but if I just drop one of the more shouty ones in, well, in fact I can just click it here, can't I? That is a bit boomy, isn't it? Let's try a different kit. That's a bit better. So can you hear the 9 beats to the bar? Yes? No? If I drop it onto the track, I can play it you with a click track, so you can hear it in more detail. One, two, three, 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 one, two, three. Good evening, M Nights. Hello, hello. Lots of fun in that. I'm going to, and this is going to shock you. I am going to exercise self-restraint and say, no, I'm not going to say, oh, that sounds promising, and then stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning making a track out of that. And then I'll have 66 songs for the 50/90 challenge instead of the 65 that I've already got. M Night says, hope we are all well. We're alive, Riako Music says. Yeah, it's how our expectations of what a week will bring us have changed since the beginning of the year. Let's just put it like that. So, yeah, thanks for swinging by anyway, mate. We're We've talked about a bunch of things. We've talked about the fact that OBS has just updated and it will probably knacker your camera setup, because it certainly did mine. So if you update it, make sure everything's working before you do your next stream, because it will probably have broken something. M. Night says 2020 a real downer. Yeah, there have been good points, I have to say. I got a couple of really lovely things through the post this week. So on Tuesday, the postman delivered my copy of the deluxe edition of Fish's new album Weltschmerz. The deluxe being it comes on 2 CDs, massive 100 and something page booklet full of illustrations by long-time collaborator and artist with Fish, Mark Wilkinson, who did all the Marillion covers. And it's a thing of beauty. And I've not listened to the CD versions, but oh boy, the 5.1 mix in DTS high definition master audio is astonishing. I think everybody should get the guy who mixed that to mix their albums in 5.1, because it envelops you. It's not fancy or fussy. There are no tricks. It just surrounds you with a sound. Attilan says, didn't know Fish was still going. Oh, mate, you have been missing. Every Friday evening at 6 p.m. on Facebook, Fish broadcasts from his sofa for Fish on Friday. And I've been hooked on it since tuning in on about episode 3 or 4, and he's now well into the 20s. And from the looks of things, he says he'll probably still be doing it at Christmas. He's said that Weltschmerz will be the last album he does. He will be doing a farewell tour, but that was originally supposed to take place next month, and then it got put back to February, and it now looks like it's going to be 2022 before it happens. He's not going to stop writing, but he says he's going to write his autobiography, and I'm sure he will be very, very busy. M. Night says, Dolby are doing Atmos for tracks now. Ooh, really? That's interesting. Noirja says Thomas Dolby. No, actually, Thomas Dolby got his name, because it's not his real name, because he was an absolute inveterate gearhead at school, and he'd buy amplifiers and pieces of electronic equipment and pull them apart and stick them back together to make music out of them. And his name is actually Robertson, currently a professor lecturing in music at an American university. I can't remember which one it is. Is it Johns Hopkins? It's one of the big ones anyway. Yeah, M. Night says Dolby Atmos is a 3D format like surround sound, but it uses ceiling speakers. The layout is normally 7.1.4. Surround sound is 5.1. Yeah, and to enhance M. Night's lovely explanation, what 5.1 means is you have 5 speakers that can handle full frequencies, so 5.0, 5 times 1.0, 1.0 being the full bandwidth, and you usually have a center one, left and right. I can't believe I did that. I actually switched it for you guys. And rear right, rear left. The 0.1 is for the subwoofer, which only handles the low frequencies below about 150 hertz. So the bandwidth for the subwoofer signal on the audio channels is about a tenth of what you get for the full range speakers, hence the 0.1. 5.1, 5 big speakers and a subwoofer. And because subwoofer frequencies, low range frequencies, are kind of non-directional, you can't really tell where they're coming from, you just feel them. You can chuck your subwoofer anywhere. So And as we were talking about last week, when I said I upgraded my hi-fi a couple of years ago, I made sure when I upgraded it that I got one that coped with all of the modern sound standards. So I have an Atmos amplifier, and I think the maximum number of channels that my amp can handle is 11.2. So you actually have stereo subwoofers. How over the top is that? And yeah, it is all about having speakers in the ceiling as well as at ear level. And the reason why you can do that and have such a variation in the number of speakers, because I've got a 7.1 system, so I've got rear left, rear right, and rear back right and rear back lefts. So you get, and I have actually got films that you can hear the explicit sending to the rear back channels. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou's brilliant. The bit where they shot at, you actually hear the gunshot travel through the room. It's bizarre. But the thing is, back in the old days of like original surround sound, the soundtracks, like my Ableton, would just have a track for each speaker, and the amp would pick those tracks up and just pipe the appropriate track to each speaker. Doesn't happen anymore. What they do is each sound element of the soundtrack is encoded into a bit stream, and the amp's job is to look at your setup and your speakers and your sound field and say, okay, well, that particular helicopter noise needs to go about there. And it positions it in the sound field rather than piping it to an individual speaker. And I don't know if I'm really not up to speed with things like psychoacoustics, but my old system, and it's still there because I hadn't the heart to take it to the junk shop, and I'll probably use it in the studio as a second feed for the monitors. My old Denon system did DTS, but when you got a sound, you knew it was somewhere about there in the sound field. These new amps with Atmos and the way that they position stuff in the sound field, you can go, oh yeah, it's there. You could pretty much hang a hook on where your perception of each sound in the field is. And M. Night says they literally use a Joy-Con to pan sounds in 3D. It is most bizarre. And the fact that it's all done computationally and there's a processor in your amp that is doing the maths to figure out where to stick stuff in front of your ears blows my mind. But that's the kind. We might not have flying cars, but the technology that lets film studios and directors and sound designers do that, to me, is 100 times more over the top and just realms of science fiction than any, black fly flying drone with a seat on it will ever be. Wobby123 says, we have paramedic jet suits, though. We do, and we also apparently have a guy dressed as Buzz Lightyear who was flying next to airliners coming in on final into Los Angeles airport at the end of August. And put the wind up quite a few commercial flights by the sounds of it. So I put that in last month's blog. Mel says, Ryako Music says, no way. I say, yes way. There are some very silly people out there. But sound design, sounds, processing, technology. I have been watching a lot of YouTube over the last couple of weeks, and this is, I think, kind of the last thing that I want to share with you tonight, because I've pretty much covered everything that I will want to cover. You know, I have become rather obsessed with orchestral arrangements of things since I filled in the questionnaire on Spitfire Audio's website. Back in June, was it? It was certainly a good few months ago now. You fill out a questionnaire that says, what sort of music do you make? What sort of audience do you make your music for? And you send your reply off to Spitfire Audio, and then 2 weeks later, they enable a code on the Spitfire Audio app, which I will just show you here because I have it installed. So you download the Spitfire Audio app, and if you're a sound person, VST person, you really, really, really need to download the Spitfire Audio app because of something I'll show you in a minute. But when you install the app, if you've filled out the questionnaire 2 weeks later, this little sucker pops up on your screen. The BBC Symphony Orchestra is a free VST instrument that will fit in your DAW for Macintosh or PC, and it gives you a very cut down but fairly full implementation of the BBC Symphony Orchestra with violins and first and seconds, violas, cellos, basses, all the horns, a lot of percussion including timpani and various things like a glockenspiel, a celeste, there's a harp. It's lovely. And the other reason why you want Spitfire Audio's app installed on your machine is because Spitfire Audio have an unending stream of free experimental sound VSTs called labs, and they dropped monochord recently, and another one came out which is called textural pads that came out last week. They're glorious fun to play with, so do have fun. Install Spitfire Audio's app, go to Spitfire Audio's website, download the app, install it, fill out their free questionnaire, and get the BBC Symphony Orchestra labs. M. Knight says their libraries are really nice. The Hans Zimmer one is stunning but too expensive. Yeah, tell me about it. The ones, I mean, you notice I had actually got a few there. The libraries I have are all the 29 quid jobs. But even those, the Olivier Patrice Vader one is superb. I've used it on 5 or 6 tracks now. Really, really feel inspired when I use it. And that brings me back to the point for which all of the aforementioned diversion was in fact relevant and even contextualizing what I'm about to say, which is Spitfire Audio's website and Spitfire Audio's YouTube channel and Christian Henson Music's YouTube channel are doing a series of YouTube videos called Spitfire Audio Summer School, and they're all free. You can just watch them. And M. Knight says, because it's the BBC, do people outside the UK have access to it? Oh, yeah. And in fact, a lot of my friends in the States have filled out the questionnaire and started using it and are having great fun with it. And it's lovely taking part in 5090 that this is the first year suddenly you're hearing your friends who are making music and they're putting in string arrangements. It's wonderful. It's just this glorious sort of flowering of creative joy of just having access to stuff that you thought you'd never be able to have access to. I mean, scoring stuff and thinking, oh yeah, I'll have some cellos here and maybe a few horns, and let's have the timpani just come in for this. Brilliant. And it's free if you fill out the questionnaire. If you want it now, if you literally cannot wait, it's 49 quid. There are one or two small sort of cutbacks which have to be made to make something downloadable, because it's only like 250, 260 megs. The other two iterations of the BBC Symphony Orchestra package are Core, which I think is $2.99 or $3.99, and Professional, which is like $6.99. And I think the Professional one is like 60 gigabytes. It's enormous. So there are more articulations, in other words, different playing styles for the Core, and even more articulations for the Professional versions. And if you press the same note, the Discover will play you the same sample each time, but Core and the Professional versions will actually round robin it, so they will play a different sample. So it sounds more like a genuine human being playing than just a synth on your DAW. Noaja says, kids at Christmas feeling. It is, exactly. Installing a new library does feel like Christmas as a child, says M. Knights. Yeah, totally agree. And I think before you joined us, I was just saying how finding just a new sound in the collection of stuff that you gather as your obsession grows with this stuff, and mine has got completely out of hand this summer. I will suddenly think, I'm bored. I need to find and install a new VST in the next 40 minutes, and I'll go off and do it, because there are thousands of the things available out there. All right, some of them are only 32-bit, so they won't work with my version of Ableton. And Mel, that is one consolation for you still using Live 9, is that it still uses 32-bit VSTs, because when you, and I'm sure you will eventually upgrade to Live 10, you will suddenly find that none of your 32-bit VSTs work anymore, and you suddenly have to think, do I Java bridge those and make them work in 64-bit, or do I just move on and buy something more up-to-date? And it was a wrench, but I've installed a lot of really, really super-duper new plugins as a result of making the cut. So yes, watch the Spitfire Audio summer schools. I was watching one today, which is literally Christian saying, okay, what are the first steps when you're scoring something and doing it professionally? And he admitted the first time he actually got a gig as a professional composer, he sat down in front of his DAW and, bless him, burst into tears. Total imposter syndrome of thinking, I can't do this. And he's scored something like 50 films and TV shows now, and it's sickening. He just sits down and goes, well, let's do something. So why don't I just play, and plays this beautiful piece of music on the piano, and then within 30 minutes has changed the piano piece into a score with cello and basses and violas and violins and horns and percussion and everything else. Do check them out. They're just wonderful. Ryako Music says, also, I like Live 9. What's not to like? It's Ableton. Noaja says, I feel you, M. Nights. I love new pens. Same feeling. Oh, God, yes. Getting a new pen. You know, I mean, you may have noticed when I show my notes that I don't normally favour biros. So this, I don't know if you can see that. That's a Rotring Art pen with an almost chisel-like nib. It is very... I think you can see that. I can see it on the monitor here. I think it's a 1.5mm might even be a 1.7mm chisel nib on that. So, and because music nerd, it is full of a Diamine Ink, which is one of a series of 6 which Diamine, who are a British ink company who've been going since the middle of the 19th century, released 2-3 years ago now. And there are 6 colours in the range, and they're all based on different paint finishes for Gibson guitars, specifically Gibson Les Pauls. So this is currently full of Desert Sunburst. I also have Tobacco Sunburst and Cherry Sunburst and Pelham Blue, and well, you get the idea. I'm kind of obsessive about pens. Raja says, I am horny for pens and paper. Me too. It's probably not going to be worth ordering from them because I'm sure postage will be absolutely prohibitive. But Raja, check out cultpens.co.uk. Cult, cultpens.co.uk. The stuff they have in there, it's like an Aladdin's cave. And I am signed up for their Panorama mailing list. So every month they will send you a mailing list of the latest issues from all the major really sweet, really nice pen manufacturers, and give you, 10, 15, 20% discounts on certain lines that they cover. And they do all of them. Pilot, Caran d'Ache, Mont Blanc, Cross, they're all on there. You can buy. So my fountain pen collection, I can't afford the really high-end ones, but I think that was about 15 quid. So it's a Rotring art pen. It's about 15 quid, but I absolutely love it. And Lamy do one that is almost identical in style to it. It looks like a bit like one of the old dipping pens, but calligraphy is maybe that's something I can live stream at some point, of just writing stuff with calligraphy. Could be an idea. Rajai says, going pen shopping, very jealous. Ryako Music says, I just want fluffy pens. Fluffy pens? M. Night says, yes, please. Okay. I have somewhere up there a massive collection of sort of how to write unseal and Gothic black letter and stuff like that. But the style that has eluded me, and I think it's probably because I drink too much coffee, is copperplate. And I bought myself the copperplate pens and scratchy. Yeah. Maybe now I'm sort of retired. That's something I can work on over the next year or so and just teach myself proper Victorian copperplate script, because wow, when it's done nice, it's something else. Wobby123 says nice. So that's it, I think, for another week. Ryako Music says, I can't do calligraphy. It requires patience. Yeah, I'm obsessive, and certainly on the spectrum. So assigning myself the task of learning how to do proper calligraphy was just going to happen anyway. Right, folks, that's it. I'm done. I'm dry. 5090 for me is done and dusted. I will be having a show on Sunday night. It will kind of be a 5090 after party. So it will be, what did we learn from 5090 this year other than sitting in this chair for a long time makes my back hurt? You're all invited. Come along. That'll be 9 p.m. on Sunday. Tell your friends, get them to come along too. It'll be on this Twitch channel, and then obviously it'll be on YouTube afterwards. Ryako Music says, cool, will do. Good stuff. All right, folks, I will see you on Sunday. Until then, look after yourselves. Wear a damn mask. Stay sane. Stay well, and stay safe. So thanks all. Have a good night. Have a good rest of the week, and have a good weekend. Naja says, I'll be there. I'll bring drinks. Now you're talking. All right, guys. Take care.